What's going on, guys? We are back for round 2 at the 2017 United States Amateur Disc Golf Championship. And just a little bonus footage here, pre-round. Everyone's getting to know each other here a little bit, a little extra time for the card in front of them to finish hole 1. Gonna have some rules and swap scorecards because you don't actually keep your own score, you keep somebody else's score and you switch at the end of the round. So there you get to kind of see the fairway. It's almost time for them to tee off. Here they're going to be switching scorecards. Mark Stevens, the assistant tournament director, is going to be letting them know what to do, what not to do, and to have fun. And that's what tournaments and disc golf is all about, is having fun. And we're going to get this round started here very shortly. So for our featured card, which is the lead card for the second round, we have Brandon Oleskie leading the tournament at 7 under. Just behind him you have Lhotak and Alec Anderson both at 6 under. And then right behind them you have Anthony Ippolito with a 4 under par. So to recap, hole 1 is 477 feet. It is a par 3 and downhill. This is going to be a pretty tough birdie. It's not quite a par 4, but to get the birdie 2 on this hole, you have to have a great shot. You can either throw a big sidearm that's going to glide over to the right, or you can throw slightly straight to understable mid-range or fairway driver. I believe Oleskie was throwing a buzz here. Had a great line on it, and it just started fading out. It lost, as soon as it started losing its speed, it just started fading out there. It was going right at the bucket, but he's going to have a long look for birdie. Dylan up next here. I think he went with a PD2. He is sponsored by Discmania, I do believe. And he got it out there. It didn't glide quite enough, but again, he's going to have a long look. I'm not sure what Alec threw here. It also looked like a mid-range. I believe it is a buzz as well. He got it a little too turned over off the tee, so it just kind of hit and cut rolled out, which isn't bad at all. And then you got Anthony here throwing another big sidearm. He is the closest out of all of them, but he's still probably 45, 50 feet away or so. Alec there just laying up for his 3. You got Brendan here with a long look for birdie 2. And with right height and everything, just short and left. But again, a par 3 here is not a big deal. For the whole tournament, there was not many birdies on this hole. So if you can actually get the birdie and convert here, you're getting a stroke on basically the whole field, if not your card. And Anthony there with a great run. Again, just not quite enough power. His right height and everything just kind of tailed off at the end there. And you have everyone just tapping in for their 3s here. Shouldn't be a problem for these guys. They've all put together some pretty good rounds for their first round of Am Nationals. All right, so everyone takes a par 3. Scores do not change. You still got 7 under for Brandon, the 6 under par for Alec and Dylan, and then the 4 under for Anthony. And then on to hole 2, which again, I do not have a flyby of, but it's relatively straightforward and not. You basically want to be more on the left side of the fairway, exactly where Brandon went. And surprisingly, the spotter there just didn't feel like he needed to move, I guess. So he did get hit, but I don't think it really would have, saved him or cost him any distance there. Dylan's down there in a pretty great spot, just short of the hill about on the left side, so it's going to be a pretty easy upshot. Alex on, I would say, the worst part of the fairway. He's on the very right side, so he's kind of forced to throw this anti-flex line up the hill. And I don't know if you guys have thrown up very steep hills or down very steep hills, but the trick is throwing up, or you're going to throw understable uphill, because if you were to think of the same shot but make it a flat shot, you're basically throwing straight up in the air. So getting this to travel really far, even though it's maybe only a 300-foot shot, throwing a 300-foot stall shot on flat ground is pretty difficult. So these guys are making pretty easy work on their second shot getting up this hill. Brandon is the only one that's not going to have a great... he's going to have a really good shot if he wanted to get way up there, but that's not the play that you want. He wants to just kind of get to the fairway and get on the flatter part so he can attack for his third to get up there for birdie, which he does very well there. And I believe he goes with a Star Destroyer. Does go a little low. He's got a little bit of a, I don't know, kind of an air bounce throw sometimes. And he does crest the hill, so he's going to be putting from, I believe, just outside the circle, I would guess. And then the next three guys, they're in a relatively easy position to get up and down for birdie. And Alec and Dylan both throw great up shots, and Anthony is here to copy them. They all should be in a great spot to attack the basket for birdie. Brennan is the furthest one out from probably the worst tee shot out of the group, but he does recover nicely, and here he is putting for his birdie from outside the circle and nails it. That is a huge, huge birdie save from where he was at after throwing a skip shot off the spotter. And Dylan there making a great putt for his birdie, and unfortunately Alec comes up a little short and just putts it right into the cage. Probably just beginning of the round nerves, just got to shake it off. A 5 on that hole is still respectable. There's still more than a handful of 6s on that hole, I'm sure. But with 3 birdies across the board, 1 par, everyone's still within a few strokes of each other. Now on to hole 3, it is a giant downhill 915-foot par 4. The big trick on this hole is you want to throw down with the hill. You don't want to throw flat out. And you want to throw something that's going to be straight to overstable for you. Off the tee pad, it does look like it's a big Anheuser shot, but you don't want to throw that disc that's going to give you that little bit of extra distance, because more times than not, as soon as your disc turns over, that gravity is just going to pull your disc right into the shoal on the right side, and you're not going to have a very easy look at a birdie 3. You will be lucky to have come out with a par. So if you throw flat out and you end up in 13's fairway, which is where Dylan and Brandon almost end up going, you're still able to have a clean shot and get there for a birdie 3. The only thing that you really have to contend with is the mounds that are down there. If you end up on the side of it, it can be a little awkward, but the rest of the fairway, it's easier to end up in the rest of the fairway than not. So the first 3 drives kind of do that. They all end up a little more left than you want. Alec there, he does end up blocking the rest of the shot, but he shows you exactly what you would like to do on this hole, and he's going to have a pretty easy up and down for his 3, as to where everyone else is going to have a much longer look to try to put their drives in the circle. And you got Anthony here from 13's fairway. His ended up just kind of floating left, so he ended up a lot shorter than the rest. He's going to be looking to get up and down for his par 4. Brandon ended up on the other side of this berm, but on the actual side of it. So he had to contend with planting on the side of a wall almost, and then throwing over the grass that was almost taller than him. So he also is going to be looking for a par 4. Dylan ended up in the short grass with no hindrance whatsoever. Goes a little long, but he's going to be putting from about circle's edge. And then with the best drive of the group is Alec here, and just a nice, easy spike hyzer right at the basket, and he's basically parked. He's got probably 15 feet or so to putt. And then Brandon with his upshot going straight at it, a little high, but he also is within that 15-foot range, so he should be getting his par 4. And then Anthony here with a long run. Almost looked like it was going to go in, but it was just one of those putts that if it was just a little more center, it was right there. It's just a little off. And Dylan with a great putt for birdie, again from that circle's edge. And then Brandon cleaning up for his par here, and eventually getting to Alec's drive for his birdie. And this one should be a no-brainer. There you go. That's a great putt. Great recovery from hole 2 on hole 3 for Alec there. And Anthony just tapping in for his par. So we got a couple pars, a couple birdies on hole 3, and we are on to hole 4, the hardest par 3 on this course by far. It is 508 feet. It is over these towering trees and tucked up into this little corner on top of this hill. And you don't have the greatest run up. Right? Really the only way that I foresee really getting there is a big turnover, maybe some crazy, ridiculous, monstrous hyzer over everything if you have like Simon and Eagle power or something like that. But in my opinion, this hole plays like a par 4. Taking a 3 on this hole is really, really good. So taking a par on this hole almost feels like a birdie. So you got Dylan with a riskier hyzer route. The left side, in my opinion, is much more open. The hyzer route, you kind of have to punch this little window in the trees. And if you get caught up, you're going to have a much tougher time to get into a position to attack the basket to get your 3. And Brendan there, his kind of flexed out a little bit, but he ends up in a spot that's pretty decent. He's going to have a look to get up on top of the hill. And Anthony opts for the sidearm up the gut. Comes out a little early, so he's got this short little window to go through and contend with. Just kind of throws it into the ground there, unfortunately. And that's a lot of times where you end up on the hyzer route, unless you throw a great shot like Dylan did. And then Alec there with exactly how you want to play this hole. A big turnover, just get around those trees, and then have a straight mid-range putter shot up to the basket. He's going to have a drop-in 3 on this hole here. And then Brandon with a little bit of an awkward stance. Opting to lean out, but doesn't really get that high enough to try to skip up the hill. It just kind of plants right where it hits. And Dylan there, coming up just a little short, but he's still within the circle from a great tee shot. And then Anthony here with a great recovery after some unfortunate first 2 shots. So he's gonna be tapping in for a par 4. And Brandon here with a long look for 3. Just not quite enough power, so it just kind of hyzers out in front of the chains. He's also going to be carding a 4. And Dylan here with a great putt for his 3. And then these guys are just going to be cleaning up with a 4 for Anthony there. Alec tapping in with a textbook style par 3, which I still believe is a birdie on this hole. And then Brandon tapping in for 4. So a couple bogey 4s that I don't think that they should be bogeys, but this year they are. And a couple pars. And then we are on to hole 5, right? The shortest hole in this course. It used to be much tougher where the trees are cut out, as you can see in the middle of the fairway here in a minute. They used to be giant bushy trees like everything else that you can see there, kind of taking away that straight up the gut shot. And unfortunately I missed Dylan's initial drive, but he threw a sidearm up over all the trees and got through everything, so he's putting at it for 2. Alec goes up the gut, misses the 1 tree that he needed to, and he gets up there within the circle, and Brandon unfortunately throws it into the tree, so he's going to be looking to get a par from that position, which can be difficult. And Anthony goes with a thumber up and over, lands close to the circle, and then just rolls backwards so far. Like it was a much better shot than what it actually looked like on camera. He was putting for a pretty easy birdie shot, and now he's got a really tough par area. Like to get through all these trees, he's got a couple little windows that he's got to hit to get up and down for par, which he does great. So him and Brandon threw a great shot from where he was at. He got to a spot that was pretty wide open. And then Alec and Dylan are right here putting from 10, if not 15 feet for birdie on hole 5. And in years past, this used to be a hole that was kind of a crapshoot. And getting a 2 on this hole was basically a bonus. Now it's almost a must-get. There's not many 2s that you're going to be able to get on this course. You have a lot of par 4s, which in my opinion is great. And we got, again, a couple birdies here, a couple pars. We are on to hole 6. One of the many par 4s on this course. It's 632 feet. You're shooting out of a gap, over a valley, into another gap, which you have to throw into another gap, which the basket is up on top of this hill. And the big key of getting the birdie on this hole, just like with any other hole on this course, is your tee shot. So right here, you want to punch through the gap as much as you can, but you want to at least be on top of the hill almost anywhere. Even where Dylan ends up, he wasn't so happy about it, but he does have a position where he can attack it. It is going to be a much tougher shot than if you were to end up in the shorter grass. And then you have Alec here going a little more straight at it. Comes up a little short, but it does skip up into that perfect position I was talking about. And then Brandon here looking to do the same thing. Comes out a little wider, but he does have the distance, so he gets up there, he gets a little past Alec, and then is on the left side of that tree. So hopefully that tree doesn't get into his way too much. And then you have Anthony here throwing a great hyzer flip, and then goes past Alec, past Brandon, past the spotters, and into a phenomenal position. Is probably one of the best shots that I've ever seen on this hole in that tee pad area. There used to be a shorter one that was left of that tee pad, but it did make that shot much easier. It's probably like a 400-foot shot or so to get across that valley into your spotter. So Alec there threw a great shot. He's going to be putting from within the circle. Brandon doing the same, coming up a little short, but they're both going to be putting from probably 20 to 25 feet. And then we have Dylan here, kind of in a little bit of a rough spot, but he's basically going to throw a hyzer into this area and try to skip up the hill a little bit. And he threw like a black disc, so it's impossible to see. But he ended up on the short side of the hill. He's got probably a 50-foot uphill putt. And then Alec here showing you exactly how to play this hole. You want to mash your tee shot way down the fairway and then have just an easy standstill hyzer right up to the bucket with a drop-in birdie 3. And then Dylan there trying to run it down, just comes up a little short right and just off the face of the cage. But that was a great attempt by him there. And Alec here from close to circle's edge, probably 25 feet, and just nails it. That's a great birdie there. And then up next we have Brandon from a couple feet closer, looking to get this one to drop. And unfortunately, it was just off the lip and into the chains, and the chains looked like they just pushed it right out, unfortunately. So Brandon's going to be taking a 4. Dylan cleans up his 4 as well. Brandon here is going to be tapping out, and Anthony had already tapped out just to get out of everyone's way. So a couple par 4s, a couple birdie 3s on that hole. Still a pretty tight race on this lead card here going into hole 7. It's 483 feet. It is another par 4. This is not a hole where you can really get up the fairway to the bucket unless you have some ridiculous sidearm. And even then, the window's so short, it's so small and not very tall that you can really get any air underneath your disc. So you want to ideally throw overstable and fast through that gap that Alec and Anthony almost hit. Alec was just a little high, Anthony was just a little left. And then you have Dylan there showing you pretty much exactly what you want to do. He's kind of a little straight, but he's going to have a look at getting up there for a birdie. And Brandon throws a great shot there. That's exactly what you want to do. You want to get through the center of it and then just start fading to the left. It's going to open up a big turnover shot. Now Anthony got out, so he's going to be looking to get his par. Alec throws a giant turnover that was really hard to follow from here. And he got into a putting range. He's probably 50, maybe closer to 60 feet away for his birdie. But the coverage here doesn't show exactly how uphill this hole really is. Even where Dylan was at, he was running uphill to throw basically an uncomfortably hard turnover that didn't quite turn over enough. It stalled out and it ended up left of that tree. And Anthony threw a thumber that I thought was going to go in. And it's crazy that it didn't touch any metal, but he's underneath the bucket, so he's going to have a drop-in par on this hole. And then Brandon throws a buzz up here, stalls out a little, and then just lands within 15 feet. So he's going to have a pretty easy look for his birdie. Alec from the long grass almost cans it, just a little bit right of the bucket. And Dylan's contending with this branch on this tree, so kind of a low spin putt right at it. And basket height, unfortunately, wasn't giving it a chance, but he was at least trying for it. And then you got Brandon here for birdie 3 on 7. Dead center putt. That's a great make for making up his previous par on hole 6. And then Dylan here saving his par 4. And then Alec and Anthony are going to be cleaning up as well. There you go. So the lone birdie 3 by Brandon. Everyone else taking a 4. On to hole 8, which is a big blind hyzer. It's 462 feet. And you want to throw it up over the trees on a hyzer with something that's fast and overstable and almost play a shot that's going to go too far left. And I'm recording from the next tee pad because it's a really hard angle to film from the tee pad. You're only going to see the initial drive and then nothing else. So you can see the disc coming out of that cove, going up over all the trees, and then they have a wall of trees to contend with. So if you get through the trees, you're basically parked. If you hit the trees, you're probably going to fall a little short outside of the circle and have a long, like 40-foot uphill putter. So Brandon put his within the mouth of the gap. There's one big open gap there, so he's going to have a wide open shot at it. And then you have Alec and Dylan throwing here. They're also just outside of the mouth of the bucket. There used to be a couple bushes to contend with out there too, but that they took out. There are these giant Russian olives that if you landed in there, you were just kind of pitching out so you could then putt for your next shot, unfortunately. But they took those out as a safety hazard and kind of clean up the course some. Dylan there just trying to get up and down for 3. I think he was trying to run it, but from his angle it was really tough. And you have Anthony here with a great bid. Almost puts it in, but just a little high right. Brandon's up next to try to get the birdie 2. And great line, just a little too low, just right center cage. And then Alec here trying to figure out his footing best to try to attack this basket to get the cleanest look that he can. Because this is another hole that's a par 3. It's a fair par 3, but getting a 2 on this hole can be very difficult at times. And Alec just off the top of everything. And there he is making up his par, as everyone else here is going to be doing. Which a 3 on this hole is not bad. It does kind of hurt sometimes, but not necessarily. As long as you're 3ing it and not 4ing it, that's completely fine. If you get the birdie 2 on it, then that's absolutely fantastic. So on to the last hole of the front 9 here. It is very uphill. It is 425 feet, and it is still just a par 3. Because it is gettable, there are multiple lines that you can take on this hole, but there's no really guaranteed way to try to get a birdie 2. You can throw a big Anheuser shot that a couple of these guys are going to be doing. There is a hyzer into basically the shul on the right, but it opens up over there for an easy 3. Or to really try to get aggressive, you can actually throw it in between those 2 lines, which is through the main trees to the right of where Brandon landed there, and then just try to flex and fight through. That's probably the most consistent way that I've seen this whole birdie is to try to get lucky through those trees. So Alec unfortunately comes up a little short, hits the top of the hill, which is not really where you want to be. Dylan throws a monstrous sidearm up this hole. It didn't look like it was going to go that far in person. It just kept going and going and going. So he's got a long putt for 2. So if you can do something like that and get a giant sidearm up there, by all means do that. Like throwing a hyzer, it's the most consistent shot, and that's I wish I could do something like that. That was a great shot. And unfortunately, Anthony was doing the other line that I was telling you about, trying to get lucky through those trees, but he did get caught up. But he will have a really easy upshot from where he's at. Even though it looks really bad, it's very wide open. He's just got to get up on top of the hill, and he's right there. Yep, just like that. So, on to Brandon. He's got a long putt, but just getting up and down for 3 on this hole is always good. No harm, no foul. And here's Alec with a long putt after throwing an unfortunate second shot. Almost nails it, but just not enough power, so it hyzers out just that little bit before the chains. And Dylan with the last look. Dead center, just a little too low again. That's happened with these guys like so many times this round. If they could have just got the disc a little higher, a little more power on it, they'd be shooting like lights out rounds. So these guys are definitely putting on a show. Everybody just tapping out here for the last hole of the front 9. Brandon, Dylan, and Anthony all carding par 3s. Alec with the only bogey 4. So far, Brandon is 1 under par, Dylan is 3 under, Alec at 2 under, and Anthony at 1 under after the first 9 holes. Thanks for watching, guys, and we'll see you on the back.